Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program. I'm Taimour Shamil. Pakistan has been fighting war on terror for the last 16 years, and not just Pakistan, but the Afghan government and the US have been fighting the terrorist organizations inside Pakistan and also in Afghanistan primarily. Pakistan has launched successful military operations against most notorious terrorist organizations and groups in the region. TTP, Jamaatul Ahrar, Al-Qaeda for that matter, were the organizations that were at one time operating inside Pakistan, but they were successfully eliminated from SWAT, Rahe-Ras, Rahe-Najat, Operation Zarb-e-Azb, Radul Fasad, and Operation Khyber 4 were launched to eliminate these terrorist organizations. While Pakistan is fighting these terrorist organizations successfully, it also expects the Afghan government to reciprocate the efforts done by Pakistan. Many of the terrorist organizations have their safe havens and sanctuaries in Afghanistan. Jamaatul Ahrar, for that matter, and TTP operate in Nangarhar province. And still, the fight is going on between Taliban and Daesh for the Nangarhar province. 16 years on, Afghanistan is still unstable. It's not. We see less peace and stability in Afghanistan. But at the same time, Pakistan has also been listening the blame game from the Kabul administration and also from some US officials as well. Can blame game or the blame rhetoric solve the issue or solve the issues that are there in Afghanistan? And how can we move forward? How can Pakistan and US address the issues that are there in Afghanistan? Today we are going to discuss about Pakistan and US relations in the wake of developments that are there inside Afghanistan. And for that, we have our guest in the studios. Our first guest is Ambassador Aslam Rizvi, the senior diplomat and expert on Pakistan's foreign policy. So welcome to the program. Our second guest is Lieutenant General Talat Masood, the senior defense analyst. So welcome to the program. Thank you. Mr. Aslam Rizvi, starting with the statements that we have been listening from the Kabul administration, and also recently a US top general in Afghanistan said that there is no change in Pakistan's approach towards Afghanistan, Pakistan's behavior towards Afghanistan. Efforts made by Pakistan and then the blame game, the blame rhetoric, what do you make out of it?
Well, once the South Asia policy was enunciated by President Trump, there has been statements coming about the role that Pakistan has to play in the region to be able to get their desired objective in Afghanistan. What that objective is not clear at all. It has never been in the past, is not clear even now. Are they there simply to perpetuate their stay, or they want to defeat the Taliban there and turn the country into a democracy? So the result is that they are thinking that this time around they will be able to have military operations and try and defeat the Taliban militarily enough so that they will be able to get them on the negotiating table. This is a policy which has failed in the past because we've seen that when you had over 130,000, 50,000 ISF forces there, they couldn't do it. But now they feel that because of the increased aerial capacity that they are trying to inject into the Afghan military as well as their own reaction, that they will be able to succeed in doing that. But and then there is pressure on Pakistan that what is happening in Afghanistan, the reason that they're not able to defeat the Taliban is because of the safe havens that we have in Pakistan, especially harboring the Haqqani network. But the point is very clear that the Taliban are already controlling 40 to 45%
right.
of the territory there, number one. Number two, we have cleared Pakistan of any military organizations across the board. Also, we have seen that the Afghan, the Haqqani network leadership is also not here because they have a place to go to. Perhaps they may be an odd family here or so, they may come and go away. That could be one thing. But the important point here is to be noted is that Haqqanis are perhaps 20 to 30% of the war effort which is going on. There are other
Different players
elements
in Afghanistan.
there.
Right.
So what difference will it make even if the Haqqani network is removed from here or eliminated altogether?
Right.
The Americans have to recognize that it is the situation within Afghanistan. It is the other warlords, the corruption there, the mismanagement, etc., which is responsible for the condition.
This exactly is the point, General Talat, that still 45% of the land in Afghanistan is controlled by the Taliban. Massive corruption we see in Afghanistan, still political instability as well. 16 years on, more terrorist organizations have sprouted, Daesh for that matter, but still the do more mantra is for Pakistan, and still why Pakistan is being made the scapegoat for what is happening in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think it's scapegoat and it's escapism, and they are frustrated. They also have to report to their own people and also to the government, because they have been failing in this policy of trying to sort of eliminate the Taliban from Afghanistan. And as you very rightly pointed out, and so did the ambassador very clearly, all the reasons. So I think this is nothing else but scapegoating. But at the same time, Pakistan continues to sort of fortify its own borders, tries to cooperate as much as possible. As you would recall, that Pakistan has made extra effort in order to sort of develop an understanding with the present Afghan government, has made several attempts at that. There have been misunderstandings, but the chief particularly has gone and tried to has been very clear about making inroads into Afghanistan's leadership and trying to give them the confidence that we'll do our best. But despite that, I think there is an element of helplessness over there, because they are unable to control that area. It is not in their control either. And then the Americans are, as has been said earlier, completely relying on aerial and satellite imagery to sort of pinpoint and target these militants or the Taliban. But that is not enough, and that has failed in the past. It would fail in the future. So what I feel is that what is essentially needed, as Pakistan has been saying all along, a political solution is essential. And for that political solution, you have to create a certain element of confidence between the opposing parties. Right. So the President Trump's and American policy at the moment has been that you actually defeat the Taliban. That would not be possible. So that they have tried. And that is why they are thinking that with this aerial bombardment and all, they would be weakened to a point that they will be brought to the negotiating table, and then they will comply with all the demands that they are making, that is the Americans. And then furthermore, I think the central issue again is as important as what I had already said, is that the Taliban are saying that, the Americans, you are going to stay here for so long, and this is unacceptable to us. Right. Because we want Afghanistan to be a free country, and we will not stop fighting till you leave Afghanistan. So that also has become a central issue.
Central issue. And Pakistan, Ambassador Rizvi, has made it very clear, and I would say this is sort of unprecedented, the way Prime Minister Shahid Khaqan Abbasi at UNGA said that Pakistan would not become scapegoat, one. It is a failed strategy, an US failed strategy in Afghanistan, and Pakistan would not fight anybody's war on its soil. So the message from Pakistan is very clear this time. How do you see the message being cleared to, let's say, delivered to the American friends, and how do they perceive it?
Well, I think Pakistan has drawn a red line clearly that, they have been asking us to do more, and we have said no more. What we need for the American is to recognize the situation in Afghanistan and try and get to the negotiating table with the Taliban, direct talks, which is something they have been talking. Number one. Number two, the You know, the fact is that unless and until they start talking with the Taliban, we are not going to go anywhere. The time is going to be wasted, and more killings will take place. Yes, there are certain things that they need to do. For example, the drugs, the economy which is supporting the militants there, especially those Al-Qaeda a lot, and the Daesh who are also there. They should be targeting, and recently we have seen some examples of that they have taken on. Also, they have the TTP, which is the Pakistani Taliban. They are known to be involved in terrorist action, not for like the Afghan Taliban, who are fighting a national cause, and these are the terrorist ones. They are being used by our neighbors, India. We have, as you know, we have Jadav, the commander here,
Right.
or the spy and the terrorist here. So what we need to do is that we have to convince and emphasize to the Americans that we have both the same objective, that is to have a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. But our approach is a bit dissimilar in the sense they want to do it by force. We say, well, through negotiation.
Right.
And that's what we should be emphasizing to them.
But General Talat, do you think that they have decided, US has decided to use force because they would be increasing troops in Afghanistan, and they have already increased troops in Afghanistan. So do you think that US has decided that they would go for the force, let's say, and solution through force, or they would want political solution to this whole issue?
Well, they have increased their force, but it's only not very much. It's only about 3,000 troops.
Right.
And those 3,000 troops are special troops, most of them. And also they are meant to give advice and also come into operation when there is a dire need for the Afghan government. So these are the 2 or 3 conditions on the basis which they have increased their force. And but they are relying heavily on firstly the Afghan forces themselves, which are truly not capable as yet, and at the same time heavily relying on their own technology. And as we said earlier, that trying to sort of use satellites and use bombardment and so on and so forth. But that doesn't work. It hasn't worked in Vietnam. It is not going to work in Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, they have been doing that also for a long time, except that they may be intensifying it now. But intensifying also would not help. So I think eventually there would be no choice for them if they really want to sort of have a peaceful exit without engagement. Now, the thing is that they want to have engagement from the position of strength. And they are frustrated because that position of strength they are not gaining. So they are thinking that if Pakistan also fights their war, then they might gain some strength. But Pakistan is not going to fight their war because Afghanistan's war is not Pakistan's war. Pakistan has already suffered because of Afghanistan, and it is only recently, as we just discussed, been able to clear the great fallout of the Afghan war to a large extent. Still, we continue to face difficulties because of the fallout, because the border is not fully protected. But yet, we have been able to control the situation to a very large extent. But Pakistan is very willing to cooperate with America and with Afghanistan, because it realizes that it is in its vital interest that Afghanistan becomes peaceful and stabilizes. So if there is any misperception in the minds of the Americans or Afghans that Pakistan has any other intention, because it is so obvious that if Afghanistan is stable, then it will have a very positive impact on Pakistan and on the region, and will help Pakistan in improving its trade with Afghanistan, bringing about greater stability on the border, creating openings in Central Asia, and giving more attention to its own economic and other needs within Pakistan, rather than trying to focus on the Afghanistan situation.
You mentioned about Afghanistan and that Pakistan obviously would not be involved in
One more point I would like to add before I close. And I think Pakistan also wants that Afghanistan space should not be used by India. And India can have good relations with Afghanistan. It's an independent
Diplomatic
country.
relations,
It's perfectly justified to do that. But if it is used for hostile purposes against Pakistan, and those elements which are hostile and have been killing people here in Pakistan and committing acts of terror, if they are given sanctuary in Afghanistan and Indians are sort of giving them funds and advice and intelligence and so on, I think that shows that Afghanistan government is either incompetent, unable, or is an accomplice with India.
Different factions are there, terrorist organizations inside Afghanistan, and also propaganda from the Afghanistan side as well. Pakistan has been talking about peace and stability inside Afghanistan. We see other countries in the region that they diplomatically support Pakistan as well, and also that they want a peaceful solution, political solution to the Afghan issue. No country in the region, neither China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, would not get their boots on the ground in Afghanistan. It is a war that US has been fighting in Afghanistan, and they have to take the responsibility of what is happening over there. This message from the regional countries is very clear, except that now US wants India to spend more money in Afghanistan. So this larger role that US expects India to play in Afghanistan, how is that received by the regional countries?
Well, before our foreign minister went to the United States, after the policy was announced, he did did a regional tour and discussed the policy with our neighboring countries. And there was a agreement that what is required here is that the centrality of Pakistan, the solution in Afghanistan, Pakistan is a key player, number one. Number two, Pakistan doesn't want to interfere within the internal affairs from there. We need to see an Afghan solution from there, and it has to be a regional solution, not something imposed from outside. Right. Number one. The second point is that the other countries, they have also have reservations and concerns about the militants, the terrorist organizations, which are not only, we are talking about the nationalists, but we are talking about Daesh, and we are talking about ETEM and the others. Whether Russia is concerned, the Chinese are concerned about them as well. So given all this, a regional approach is important. And as the conclusion of that, perhaps India, although it's not an immediate neighbor, has been asked by the Americans to also help out there. Well, I think Pakistan does not have any worry or concern if they are going to provide economic assistance from there, if they are going to provide development assistance from there. They have done so, 2 billion in the past, another billion more. But where we differ on that is that they are using the Afghan territory for sabotage actions against, criminal actions against Pakistan. Right. And we have proof of that. And also supporting the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Organization as well. So our reservation vis-a-vis India is the negative role that it is going to play, is playing in Afghanistan, rather than purely an economic assistance from there. And then, and a very important thing also is to be mentioned, the fact that, recently General Mattis himself mentioned the fact that CPEC is going through disputed territory. Now this, I mean, in the past, World Bank and, Tarbela Dam was made, Mangla Dam was made, and the Karakoram Highway was made. There were no such comments. Just because India had made reservation, they made a comment. So this kind of thing is not very helpful to Pakistan.
There was another statement, and that was from Chairman Joint Chief of Staff Committee, General Zubair, and he said that $500 million have been allocated by RAW to sabotage China-Pakistan economic corridor. And obviously, TTP is supported by RAW, and they have been operating from Afghanistan.
Yes. And the last time that General Mattis was here, apparently the issue of the Indian support to TTP was also raised with India. So let us hope that, and I'm sure at this time when we come, our side will raise this issue again with the, for the Americans to, put more pressure on and show their concern, Pakistani concern about the support to the TTP, number one. And number two, also about the, as far as CPEC is concerned, also to highlight the gross human right violations that are taking place, and the militancy that is there should not be seen as a terrorist thing. It is more a liberation struggle that is taking place, and ask them in that area as well.
General Talat, Saunullah Ehsan of TTP, he was a spokesperson of TTP, and now in Pakistan's custody. In his confessional video, he said that TTP is funded and supported by RAW. And as General Zubair said, that $500 million have been allocated by RAW to sabotage peace and stability. 16 years on, there are more terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. Jamaatul Ahrar is operating from Nangarhar. TTP is there. Daesh is there. So while the US is talking about safe havens in Pakistan, 45% of land, as you mentioned earlier, is controlled by the Taliban. These terrorist organizations are over there. Who is responsible for these terrorist organizations operating in Afghanistan and killing innocent people in Afghanistan and Pakistan?
Well, I mean, it's a failure of the state of Afghanistan. And as we had said earlier as well, that such a large territory is ungoverned. And when you have ungoverned territory, then obviously it's a heaven for all these militant organizations to gather there. And that's a very dangerous thing that is happening, because now, previously it was a question of just Taliban. But with so many insurgent groups coming over there, and especially the Daesh being there, it's a very serious situation which Afghanistan could be facing. And it will also have repercussions on Pakistan. So Pakistan is concerned about it. And as I said earlier, all these considerations point towards one fact, that it is in Pakistan's national interest. So the Americans and Afghans, instead of blaming, should see that Pakistan realizes all this and has been making every effort to do whatever it can to stabilize and help Afghanistan in its fight against terrorism. But one thing is there, because of the Daesh, the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians, they are also very much, especially the Russians and the Iranians, are quite keen to sort of support the Taliban in order that, not for any other reason to destabilize Afghanistan, but to merely protect their territory from Daesh occupying it. And so I think you have to see these currents and cross currents which are taking place, and in its totality trying to find some sort of a solution.
Right.
In fact, I will just add, because as you know, Taliban are also fighting the Daesh. So it's not merely that they are supporting them, the Taliban, per se for this reason, but also because of the threat that they pose to Afghanistan.
Right.
And the Taliban are wanting their country back. They don't want these people coming in there and occupying in Afghanistan.
We'll continue our discussion on Pakistan-US relations and also the situation in Afghanistan, the security situation in Afghanistan. After this break, stay with us.
The ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the
Welcome back. We are discussing Pakistan-US relations and also the security situation in Afghanistan. Ambassador Saab, we were discussing about Afghanistan. Abdullah, also the chief executive of Afghanistan, he said in an interview that TTP is operating in Afghanistan. And obviously, we know that TTP has been targeting many innocent people inside Pakistan. This whole thing of TTP operating inside Afghanistan, and how would Pakistan and US address this issue of TTP and Daesh for that matter? How do you think that we should bring up this issue with the American officials that we need to end those terrorist organizations who are operating from Afghanistan against Pakistan?
Okay, we are talking about the Haqqani network being in Pakistan and Americans claiming that they're going across to Afghanistan and contributing to the Taliban efforts to against the ISAF forces. Pakistan, it works both ways. The TTP is coming across from this side, and we have said, as mentioned by the General also, that the border security is what is important. Pakistan is doing just that. It is reinforcing the border with fencing, forts, and what we need is more intelligence sharing with them, so that there is no cross-border from here, Haqqani, as they claim. And equally, it will help us as well if there is anyone coming across from there that we know has been done. What the Americans need to do is help us in strengthening the border by not withholding the military equipment, like for example the recent F-16s that were denied to us. They didn't want to give it to us on the military aid package, but to buy it in a normal way and so on. And also recently some helicopters were withdrawn. Of course, it was Pakistan's request to replace and so on. That's not been done so far. So what we need is really a joint intelligence sharing cooperation between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and United States to attack the Pakistani Taliban, who are known to be militant. They are known to be terrorists and recognized as such. Right. And the Americans need to, like I said earlier, try and have dialogue with those good Taliban, if I may say, and for purpose of dialogue. Those who are not willing, who are terrorists, they should focus on them, and starting with the TTP. Also, perhaps one of the steps that could be there is to give them some kind of a understanding about allowing them to operate in the areas that they already control, in the sense, ask for a ceasefire in the region, those regions, mutually agree on a ceasefire, the first step with them, and that can be later expanded as the trust builds up on them. And as far as their other demand of abiding by the Constitution, number one, and number two, about their withdrawal, I think these things can be, through dialogue, can be addressed from there. Right. And what we, our contacts, recent contacts with the Afghan government, whether it was the president or the chief executive, has shown some improvement. Let us hope we can build on them. and make a meaningful contribution towards stability there.
We hear a lot of blame game, Talat, from the Afghan administration, and they have been criticizing Khyber 4 operation as well. They have been criticizing Pakistan earlier. My question is that a couple of months back, US senators were taken to South Waziristan and North Waziristan, and Chief of Army Staff took these senators to these areas. The question is, can the Kabul administration, 16 years on, can take, let's say, the US senators to Paktika, Paktia, Nangarhar or Nuristan for that matter? Because
why not? I think they can, because I think all these, no, not at all. I mean, you're talking about Afghanistan, not at all. But they could take them, provided they were safe enough. So, but they are not safe enough. That's why they don't go there. So well, the situation in Pakistan and Afghanistan is totally different. And our armed forces, as you know, have made huge sacrifices, are much more professional. There is no comparison. Afghanistan army is still, not really truly professional in the sense that we would like them to be. And although they have been in existence for quite some time and have the full support and also the financial assistance from America, but they haven't gelled as yet as a national army and are not fighting it as a national army. There are certain units within Afghanistan army which are really good, but they are few and far between. So I think we have to understand there is a very big difference. Then the situation in Afghanistan is that there is, there is a political anarchy, and Pakistan is a very politically, in that sense, maybe we have also our own political problems, but they are of a very different nature. Completely a different nature, which happens in countries which are democratic. That's of a very different kind. So I think we don't have to compare the two countries at all in that sense. We would love to, or we would very much like to see Afghanistan progress in every area, including its democratic progress or build-up of its institutions. And that can only happen if there is peace there. And for having peace, you have to take the people along, their leaders along. And that is why Pakistan has been saying that you have tried war for the last so many years, 16 years now. The Americans also have been helping you. Previously also there have been problems in Afghanistan. You have to graduate into a democratic country. To fully graduate into a democratic country, you have to get rid of foreign domination and foreign troops. You have to run the country on your own so that you don't give an excuse to the Taliban to continue fighting, because then the fighting will be perpetual, because Afghans have never accepted truly foreign domination. So these are some of the things which can happen. They can't happen overnight, but if the leadership is willing and is prepared and understands, then I think many things can change in Afghanistan, which will be good for Afghanistan, good for the region, and good for Pakistan.
Mr. Rizvi, former Afghan President Hamid Karzai, who ruled Afghanistan for almost 14 years, has recently said a couple of weeks back that he's not satisfied with the US performance or the NATO performance inside Afghanistan. And he has been also very critical of the Ghani administration as well. The question is that, do you think that now the politicians as well and different factions are realizing that the strategy at the moment in Afghanistan is not working out for Afghanistan?
It seems to be. That seems to be the case, certainly, because they have been living in this, suffering the effects of war on terror for the past so many years now, 16, 17 years, nearly coming to 17 years. And the country has, transited from gradually into different warlords, civil war-like situation, and with the also influx of foreign terrorist organizations like Daesh, etc. So I think there is a sense, I believe, I feel that the Afghans themselves are fed up of the situation as been going on. They would also like to have a peaceful existence from there, and perhaps they may also realize that what is happening and this policy of the Americans may not produce the results one of the focal points of this policy is the aerial bombardments, and Karzai himself has been very critical of that it causes a lot of collateral damage, in the past.
And the U.S. dropped mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, and that was also pretty much criticized by.
From there. So, I think there is a clear understanding, and, also the drug elements, what it's doing to the society, the ravages that the war is causing to the countryside and, the Afghan soil. And when they are sitting on, trillions of dollars of worth of mineral resources, and they are in a geostrategic position where they can benefit tremendously from the trade that can open out, not only in normal trade, but oil and energy corridors that are available to them and so on. So I think if perhaps I'm sure the new generation of Afghans would be very conscious of this fact, to be able to see the country return to normalcy.
And just to add a little, every day around 2,000 people from Afghanistan, they get visa to Pakistan, and thousands of Afghan students are getting education in Pakistan. So this is Pakistan's proactive diplomacy that Pakistan has shown interest in Afghanistan. General Talat, regional countries certainly can play a very important role. China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan have been interested in Afghanistan and to bring peace and stability over there. Do you think that regional countries have a different, let's say, approach towards peace in Afghanistan, other than US perhaps, or other than India?
No, there is of course a difference because all these four countries are also wanting a peaceful settlement. That is the major difference between American policy and that of these regional countries. They want engagement. They are very much interested in peace in Afghanistan, including Pakistan, because for the simple reason that they don't want any spillover effect in their own countries, and they are all adjoining countries, and they feel that unless Afghanistan is stable, they will continue to have problems, and there are militant organizations within their country which will be benefited by anarchy in Afghanistan. So I think it is in the interest not only of Afghanistan but of the entire region that the situation improves. And that is why we say that America doesn't have to tell us that you should do more, because it is not so much in American interest as it is in Pakistan's interest to have a stable Afghanistan. The only point of difference is that the way that the Americans are pursuing, or the policy that the Americans are pursuing, has not succeeded. And what we are saying, I'm not using the word failed, but I'm using the word not succeeded deliberately, because we don't want that the Americans should think that, our main object is that the policy in Afghanistan should succeed for Afghanistan's sake, for Pakistan's sake, and the region's sake. So we have a vital interest in that. And what else do you need as a proof that last 16 years you have not been able to achieve that? Do you want to fight for another 16 years, the similar war? You can afford to do that because you have an economy and you are not suffering. But we cannot afford that because we are suffering directly, and the Afghans are suffering 10 times more than what we are suffering. So you have to change the policy in order to, because if you don't change the policy, nothing will change in Afghanistan. It will continue to get worse.
Mr. Rizvi, Pakistan's proactive diplomacy will wind up our program, but as I said earlier, 2,000 people every day get their visa to Pakistan.
Which is very encouraging and
very encouraging,
also
yes,
very discouraging from a Afghan point of view.
And also thousands of Afghan students are getting education in Pakistan. Do you think that we need proactive diplomacy towards Afghanistan, invest more into society so that people on both sides get to know each other? Because earlier, after every attack, Pakistan was blamed for what is happening inside Afghanistan. We need to change that narrative as well in the region and in Afghanistan. What role can proactive diplomacy play in this whole thing?
Well, proactive diplomacy, of course, has its limitations as well. But Pakistan has, in its own ways, been trying to promote soft image from there, setting up universities, giving, the scholarships to students here as well. technical training, distribution of educational books and things of the nature, cultural centers, etc. But it dwarfs in contrast with India, which is much larger resources. They have other interests from there as well. So Pakistan is doing it. We are trying to first and foremost try and build trust with us, restore our trust between the two countries. We share common heritage, culture, religion. So we're trying to use these for promoting better relations with Afghanistan. Of course, one of the biggest goodwill that Pakistan has shown was to welcome the Afghans, and we continue to hold millions of refugees on our soil. If the things were all that good, they would have all gone back. They are quite happy to be here because they know the situation from there. So that's a great sacrifice that Pakistan has made. And I think those who are aware of the fact in Afghanistan know this. But there is the raw agency, the propaganda that is used from that side, which tries to put a negative image for our relations with Afghanistan. So
we have also shown our eagerness, but Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, and our Foreign Secretary, Ms. Taimour, they visited Afghanistan.
Yes.
They met President Ashraf Ghani, and this shows Pakistan's resolve to work on the issue that is there in
Absolutely.
Afghanistan.
And as a result of that, we are already seeing some improvement in our bilateral relations, and we hope that we'll be able to build on that. And I think ultimately the Afghans know very well that the future cooperation with Pakistan has a strategic element. It also has a cultural element here, more so than any other country in the region. And I think like many countries in the past during the Cold War played the game of getting aid from both sides. I think Afghanistan is welcoming the Indians for the economic assistance they're getting and support. But I think in the reality, once things become peaceful there, we will go back to the good old relationship that we had with them.
Hopefully, definitely. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Ambassador Rizvi, pleasure having you on the program. General Talat, Masood, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. That's all from today. Thank you for watching today's program. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.
Good relations.